Wholesalers, what are you going to do to make 2017 your next career year? Wholesaler Mastermind Schedulers wants to help you do that. Here's a little Easter egg for you. If you call Melanie, go to our website, Wholesaler Masterminds, look for any of the ads for the scheduling company. On the homepage, slide down, find the link for Wholesaler Mastermind Schedulers. Get a hold of Melanie. Tell her you heard about a 50% off special, 50% off special. You heard about it on the podcast. She'll fill you in on the details. We want to help you grow your business in 2017. And frankly, one of the ways that you can do that is to be more administratively adept. And one of the ways to be more administratively adept is to get somebody to assist you with your scheduling. And we look forward to assisting you. What if we had a guest today for you that brought all kinds of different magic to the podcast? Magic in the form of having been a former branch manager and complex director for BOA Merrill Lynch. Magic in the form of someone who got clarity through a significant life challenge, and magic through someone that understands what the coaching function is like. Those are some coming attractions of today's show. Welcome to the only podcast on the planet dedicated to exploring the art, science, and lifestyle of wholesalers and their leaders. This is the new Wholesaler Masterminds radio show. I'm your host, the founder of Wholesaler Masterminds, Rob Shore. Wholesalers, welcome back to the new Wholesaler Masterminds radio show. Today's guest has spent 30 plus years in our world of financial services. He joined Merrill Lynch as a financial advisor in 1991. He was Chairman's Club producer during his tenure as a producing FA. He became a resident director, that is a producing manager, and was named Manager of the Year on 2 separate occasions. He joined the executive ranks of the firm in 2006 as a director, where he continued until his retirement. His most recent post prior to retirement was director of the Columbia Complex Wholesalers. I bet some of you know that complex well. And he took the market from 80 advisors and $65 million in revenue to 125 advisors and over $107 million in revenue in a short 7-year period. Subsequent to his retirement, he is now a coach and a speaker. He coaches with a belief that one size doesn't fit all. FAs don't necessarily need more content, they need more application. And most advisors know what they can do, but often struggle on how to do it. As you might imagine, we'll have no shortage of things to talk about. Bill Edmonds, welcome to the new Wholesaler Masterminds radio show.
Thank you, Rob. It's great to be here.
It is delightful to have you here, sir. Let's set the table. So your 30-year, we share some parallels, right? 30-year plus career in financial services before branching out into the cold world of entrepreneurial America. 30 years probably in a fairly safe and womb-like environment at Merrill Lynch. Why leave?
Ooh, great question. I will tell you that I had a near-death experience, Rob, and if you look that up, near-death experience, that's really the seeing the light and all that. I didn't get quite that far. I came close enough to looking over the edge. I had always wanted to help people. Even back when I was in college, I got a degree in sociology and sort of wanted to save the world. And then I discovered capitalism, which I thought was a very novel idea. I didn't realize it was centuries old. But anyway, I caught that dream. And the thing that I liked most about being an advisor and being a director, in management was helping people get to the next level. So the things that I enjoyed most about what I did was coaching and consulting, taking a problem, taking an FA that has a particular problem or particular opportunity, say, how can we turn that into business for you? So that was always my dream. But what I found myself doing a lot of things that I did not completely enjoy. So let's just say that the parts of the role that I loved were getting smaller and smaller. It's a great experience. I love the company, got great friends. I'm a long-term Merrill Lynch guy. But I found myself 3 years ago, it's December the 2nd, 2013, with a very bad headache, and I was headed up to see one of my good friends, Jeff Erdman, who's the top producer with Merrill Lynch, to take a group of financial advisors on what I call an EC field trip. Perhaps we could talk about that later. But I had a very bad headache, and I don't get headaches. And so I said, well, maybe I should call the doctor. So I called my doctor, and he said, well, come on in. So I found myself about an hour later speaking with him, and he says, you're going for an MRI. An MRI? Yes. And so anyway, I went for an MRI. As soon as I came out of that, Rob, he was on the phone. He says, Bill, you're going straight to the hospital. You have a subdural hematoma. Mm. Now, I don't know many medical terms, but I knew that one. And here's what's really strange about that. The reason I knew that term is because I had a mentor who actually sponsored me for this level of leadership that I was in, who died 1 year earlier of subdural hematoma.
Wow.
So I will tell you, Rob, that I was stopped in my tracks, and I knew how serious it was. Went to the hospital. They wheeled me past everybody. Code red, Mr. Edmonds is here. Went in there. I found myself shortly after a CT scan talking with a neurosurgeon who was by my side, and she was beginning to explain to me what I had, showed me the blood on my brain, and said, if we don't get this taken care of, you're going to die. Do you have a living will? And when someone asks you, do you have a living will, it's like, time out, I'm not ready for this.
Oh, yeah.
And so I won't go into all of the many things that I thought about at that particular point in time and in the days and months afterwards. But let's just say what it really caused me to do is think about the things that I love to do the most. And to back up just a little bit, one of the things that I had done, one of the best decisions I ever made in my life, Rob, was to hire an executive coach. And I did that about 7 years ago. And what he did with me is he helped me work on my strengths. So I went back and reviewed my strengths. And we spend so much time working on our weaknesses. But I went back and looked at my strengths and what the things I like to do, things, quite frankly, that my teachers told me I was good at when I was in high school and in college. So what if? And so writing was one of those, speaking was one of those, and the core of it was, what if I could just do the things that I love the most? What if I could just work with financial advisors and help them get to the next level? And so, I looked, I was making a great income with Merrill Lynch, and quite frankly, that was one of the hardest things for me to say goodbye to because I wasn't ready. I knew I wanted to do this with my life, but I was not. I was going to do that like in 4 years. So long story short, Rob, I shortened that. I said, you know what, now's the time to do it. And I went out and did it. And, I've been at it for a couple of years now, and I'm having the time of my life and really am making more impact, quite frankly, than I was making in my role there at Merrill Lynch.
Bill, the story is inspiring, and we share, as I said, some common ground. That 30-year financial services career where you're making a wad of money and you finally make a decision to
right.
carve off into something else. Yours was inspired by something very different than mine. So there's two roads that we have to discuss today. And as I said to you in the pre-discussion, I'd be remiss if we didn't spend some time, because of the positions and stature that you had at your former firm, I'd be remiss if we didn't offer our wholesalers some insights into your dealings with wholesalers, what you found attractive, what annoyed the crap out of you. We have to pick your brain on that because I would just be derelict in my responsibilities if we didn't. And then I want to move over to the other road in the other direction and talk about North Star, which is the name of your firm, and some core beliefs that you have, and the whole notion of people having their purpose. But if you'll permit me, let's start out over on the characteristics of wholesalers that you not only worked with, but grew relationships with, that you found accretive to your business, that didn't give you one of the aforementioned, though not as serious, headaches. What was it about wholesalers that you enjoyed, and what was it about wholesalers that you found quite troubling?
Well, when when you said annoying. So let's start with that one.
All right.
Most annoying phrase or question is, got a minute?
Wholesalers, I'm going to stop you along the way because I have to highlight these. I have to audiophonically highlight these. Got a minute? Because when they say got a minute, what do you hear?
Well, first of all, I hear myself saying no. Okay. But here's what I hear. I hear it's the same speech. Got a minute is what everybody says. Well, what they mean is really, can I come in? Mm-hmm. And it's a very apologetic approach. It's an assumption that I'm going to take some of your time, and probably what I'm going to say is not going to be worth your time. So it does not differentiate from everybody else, and that's problematic.
There's a lot wrapped up in the last two sentences. So the approach is all wrong. And because the approach is wrong, your rightful belief is that what's going to come after the got a minute is going to be the same pablum that everybody else is going to hurl at you. That's what I heard you say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now,
exactly.
I have to imagine there are wholesalers that broke the mold that actually, from the time they offered their first utterance, had you thinking differently about what was to come after that first sentence. What did they say?
Mm-hmm. Well, what I would say, what I would say is they had an approach called content marketing, and I don't. Is that? Are you familiar with that phrase?
Well, I know exactly what content marketing is and the way I describe it, but in deference to the position that you have and held, you describe it.
This is a new phrase for me in the last couple of years, and what I would say is a lot of the wholesalers that use content marketing don't really realize what they're doing. Let me give you an example. Back in the late 1800s, John Deere decided that instead of just putting out a catalog to farmers saying, here's a tractor, look at it, here's how much it costs, buy it. What they did is they started a magazine called the Furrow, Furrow. By the way, that magazine is still in print today. But instead of saying, hey, here's a tractor, here's how much it costs, they came up with a magazine, a periodical for farmers that would tell them how to be better farmers, that would give them ideas on how to be better at their craft. Fast forward several years later, I think it was in the 30s, Michelin did the same thing. Michelin decided they were going to put out a roadmap. And instead of saying, here, buy all these tires, look at this catalog, here's something we can help you with. And my understanding is that is still around today. So the idea is this: people are going to buy your product because it makes sense for the clients and because you've added some sort of value. So content market is simply saying, how can I help you? How can I add value to you? And it's really, Rob, answering the question before it's asked. Here's something that may help you. And when a wholesaler says, here's something that may help you, and this is how it works, this is what it is a whole lot different from saying, got a minute.
In our practice, we talk a lot about PVP, peerless value proposition. It's the brand of the wholesaler that stands proudly next to the brand of the company that they serve. And it's not about their trademark, which might be the fact that they always wear blue pinstripe suits and bow ties. Mm-hmm. It's the peerless value proposition is the brand, as an example. I am the wholesaler that's going to bring your financial advisors in your office, Mr. Center of Influence, Mr. Branch Manager, Mr. Complex Director. I'm going to bring those advisors better education on generational wealth transfer, how not to blow up their book through asset transfer, death and asset transfer. That's something that I think we can, work on together to make your advisors better. Mm-hmm. Is that the kind of content marketing that started to ring true for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will also say this, that I had a mentor years ago who said to me, hey, Edmonds, you can't fool the players. And FAs are a very smart bunch of people. You get one chance. I mean, we all get one chance to make a great first impression. You get one chance to put good content in front of them. So a lot of times people would, I think there was an approach to say, hey, I've got something good for you. And the wholesaler that was bringing it knew it wasn't that good, but they said, if I could just get in. Mm-hmm. And it needs to be quality. It needs to be something that doesn't just get you in the door, but quite frankly, keeps you in the door once you get in there.
That was my next question. Did you actually have wholesalers that you thought were partners in your business when you thought about the year ahead, when you thought about your meetings, when you thought about your training, when you thought about how you would integrate knowledge to your financial advisors? Did you think about them, about wholesalers in your mix?
Yes, absolutely.
And what was it about the wholesalers that whether it was the content marketing piece or still something else, what was it about those wholesalers that they were able to break through the noise and begin to form these meaningful partnerships, sometimes perhaps consultative partnerships with your practice? How did they break through?
Well, let's talk about what they didn't do. They didn't come in and say, I'll only take a minute of your time and put a brochure in front of them. What they did was they didn't have anything in their hand. They said, what are you looking for? How can I help you with your financial advisors in the coming year? That was one approach. Now, once you got to know those people, you knew the value of the product that they were delivering. So I will mention one particular wholesaler that was very good. His firm was very good, and he was very good at bringing a lot of behavioral finance material to the table. And I think, Rob, that is the most needed thing today, because investment advice has been, I'm going to be kind here and say, largely commoditized. Mm-hmm. We could argue that it's been virtually completely commoditized, and that is the challenge. I think a lot of financial advisors are having trouble moving to that model. You had a guest on a couple of weeks ago, and I'm sorry I can't think of who it was. Maybe you can help me here. But here's what he said, something like this. He said, 25 years ago, we offered people investments. We offered them stocks, and we charged a commission for them to purchase that. So we charged them a fee, a transaction fee, and then we gave them free advice. Today, we charge them for advice, and we give them free trades. So it's a great way of describing how the business has changed. And here's the problem. Back when we charged people a commission for the product, let's just say a mutual fund, A share, B share, C share, the company set the price. So we knew what our value was, whether or not it was any good, that is, our value was really of any value or not. But now we sort of have a blank canvas. And since we know, and I continue to say we because I was a financial advisor for over 16 years, is that we've got the blank canvas. And we don't feel too much like a Picasso. We feel more like a paint-by-numbers person. And all that being said, that is the way that wholesalers today can bring the most value. Financial advisors, the ones that I work with, and many of them are over $1 million producers, in fact, most of them, quite frankly, they're having trouble with that conversation, and they really don't know how to talk to anybody about it. So if the question is not being answered, if the question is not being asked, and if I could give any advice today for wholesalers, is go out there knowing that's what they're asking, but they're not asking it, and you have the answer.
Bill, I thank you for that bit of insight. Let's move off in the other direction. So the other road that I said we were going to travel today. So you have this, scared and all get out health issue. You start to think about, what's your real purpose? Tell us what the meaning, because I know it has meaning to you. What's the meaning of North Star? How do you define your purpose, though you alluded to it earlier? How are you helping advisors define their purpose? Tell us a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, boy, I'd love to. I started off, I wanted a name. I've always been one of these people that I'm a big ideas person. And if you're familiar with the Strength Finders Index,
Yep.
Ideation is my number one. So I've always been an ideas person. I've always felt that if something has a name, it needs to have a meaning. And so I thought about Polaris, because Polaris is the name of the North Star. And I just said, no, I want to go with North Star. I looked around, a lot of North Stars out there. But I said, this is what really means a lot to me. And what I realized in my own life is that I started off with a lot of purpose. And, coming out of college, and even as a young financial advisor, I had a lot of purpose. And what I would say is, we talk about it in the industry, we talk about style drift with managers. I call it purpose drift. And, we get busy, we get on the treadmill, somebody turns the speed up a little bit. It's easier just to pick up the pace rather than to get off the treadmill and sort of think, why am I doing this? And so the Polaris, the North Star, is the only star in the sky that does not move. It is the polar star. And for centuries and centuries, it has been used as the sort of the benchmark for navigation. And just a side story, I've got a good friend of mine by the name of Charlie Duke. If that name sounds familiar, Charlie was actually one of the astronauts who walked on the moon, who was part of Apollo 16. And Charlie was telling me, he said, Bill, every one of the Apollo spaceships, those capsules, was equipped with a sextant, so that if we lost power, we would be able to come back by that North Star. And the problem that people have is, those who started out with a purpose have sort of lost that purpose. They've had purpose drift. And then I will tell you that I find a lot of people out there, and especially, say, over 40, 45 years old, 50, who just are quite honest enough to say, I'm not sure what my purpose is. And one of my favorite writers, a guy by the name of Rick Warren, wrote this book called A Purpose-Driven Life. He's got a great quote in there, and he says, life without purpose is motion without meaning, activity without direction, and events without reason. Motion without meaning, activities without direction, and events without reason. And sometimes I find in many of my clients, if they just stop long enough to maybe get off that treadmill, first of all, the treadmill's still going to be there, okay? It's still going to be there. Step off for a minute, take some time to think, and really figure out, what is your why? What is the reason you're doing what you're doing? And, I'll mention another thing. There's a guy named Alden Cass, and I don't know if you're familiar with Alden. He'd be a great guest for you sometime. But he's a psychologist in New York City, and he has a practice dedicated just to serving financial advisors. And he did some research a few years ago and found out that financial advisors have 4 times the rate of clinical depression than the average person in the U.S. And if you look at that group, Rob, the highest incident of that group are the highest producers. So the elephant in the room is more production, more money, more things. It's all nice. I'm driven. You're driven. We're all driven. But at the end of the day, there's got to be something more than just 20% growth, 15% growth. And what I spend a lot of my time is helping people reinvent themselves. So if I could just sort of wrap it up here, one of my clients said to me, $1.5 million, $1.6 million producer. He said to me last year, December, he said, Bill, I made $700,000 last year. You've got to help me have some fun this year. Now, that was his number one goal. Great business, a business, $300 million in assets, 84 clients, the kind of business people would kill for. And he said, look, 50 years old, I just need to have some more fun. And you know what? If we could have more fun at what we do, how much more productive could we be?
How
much energy
Yep.
do we get from that?
I was going to say, the ability to crack through and have more fun is only going to breed more enjoyment of the job, and to breed more enjoyment of the job is just going to add to being able to do more of the work that you would then enjoy. And I'm sure wholesalers, you can relate to finding yourself in a position at some point in your career where you've cracked the code on the income, but then you turn around and say, but damn it, this thing is no fun anymore. So it's an interesting thing. Bill, we could go on, but we can't go on because the shot clock is not our friend. I thank you for joining us to go down both paths, sharing us a little bit of wisdom about your extensive experience in the branches, and then, of course, giving us some insights into your work at North Star Leadership Solutions. I hope you'll have a chance to come back and see us again.
Would love to do that, Rob. I appreciate the time today. It's an honor, and as I told you before, I've listened to your show and found your episodes to be extremely helpful, and thank you for doing what you do.
Well, you're very generous and kind, and I appreciate that very much. Wholesalers, come back next time for another episode of the new Wholesaler Masterminds radio show. You'll find all of our content at wholesalermasterminds.com, and the podcast can be found at iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play.